Good morning. Well, last Saturday, we came to the end of the Acts of the Apostles. We don't really know what happened to Paul after that, except we get hints of it through his letters, where he says quite simply that he had been shipwrecked 2 or 3 times. Well, there's no record of that in the Acts of the Apostles. And there's many accounts of him visiting Spain. Well, there's no record of that in the Acts of the Apostles. So, in fact, after his release from Rome, Paul, in fact, had many travels and many experiences. And yes, Luke went with him. But there's no account because Luke either did not write it down, or when finally he and Paul were arrested and taken back to Rome, the documents he had written on might even have been destroyed. But on the second time he was taken back to Rome, that is when he writes many of his letters saying, I have finished the race, I am coming to the end of my life. This is the point now where I'm prepared to lay it down. And yes, in Rome, as a Roman citizen, but having offended the emperor in this particular way, he, as a Roman citizen, was put to death with a sword, possibly on the execution point on Vatican Hill, where Peter himself had died as well. But after listening to Luke's account of the gospel and the Acts of the Apostles, I wondered what I could deal with next that would take you on and give you a fuller understanding of what is happening in these early years. And I have decided to speak for a few weeks about Romans, the letter that Paul wrote to the Christians of Rome. Why did he write this particular letter? By the way, it was written before his first arrest and his first trial in Rome. Because when he writes this letter, he says quite simply, he had never been to Rome at that time. But you see, when Paul writes his letters, he usually writes them because something was going wrong. He writes to instruct them to overcome some particular difficulty which is happening at that particular time. And Paul, we don't know where he was when he wrote the letter, but Paul gets information about the church in Rome. And as he was called to be the apostle to the Gentiles, he feels that he must write and try and put this right as quickly as possible. He must try to redirect the church in that particular place. Now, what had happened and why does he write it? By the way, the letter to the Romans is not Paul's gospel. This is a letter written for a particular purpose, to try to correct something which was going wrong right at the very heart of empire itself in this particular city at this time. Well, what had happened was this. The Jews were always annoying the rulers who looked after them or tried to control them. They were always arguing with them. They were always moving against them. You see, they had a big problem, all of them, with the Jewish people, because the Jews were great bankers. They were great traders. They always have been. It's in their blood. And as they assisted the emperors and as they assisted the state, so the state, in a sense, was prepared to put up with them. But every now and again, the state would become angry with them and try to bring them under control. And as a people, they are very uncontrollable. You cannot really tell them what to do or when to do it. They have a distinct feeling that they are the children of God, the chosen nation, God's own people. And because of this feeling they have almost in their bones, they tend to stand up against tyranny. They tend to stand up against rules which are wrong. And they tend to accept whatever sort of persecution comes against them because of it. Now, we've seen antisemitism happening in almost every nation throughout time. It happens quite simply because Satan also knows that the Jews are a special people. He knows because he observed it. God calling Abram changing his name to Abraham, from exalted father to father of a multitude. He knows because he saw it happening. Isaac being born. He knows because he saw it happening. Jacob being born. And he saw as well Jacob and his sons going into Egypt, becoming slaves in Egypt, and then being called out of Egypt. And he knows why they were being called out. They were being called out for a special purpose, to establish them as a nation so that eventually Messiah could be born of them. Yes, and he knows at the present day as well that he's trying to hit them and destroy them, because he knows that when Jesus comes back, he will come back when this nation finally acknowledges Jesus as their Messiah and prays the great prayer, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." Satan knows this. That's why he hates them. And in a sense, what is happening in Rome was something to do with anti-Semitism. Amen.